So let me set the scene that caused King David to write Psalm 51. David was the king over the unified nation of Israel that included Judah, included the city of Jerusalem, where he lived. King David had been chosen, he'd been anointed by God, he'd been consecrated for the physical and the spiritual leadership of Israel by God, and he had been chosen and anointed when he was just a boy. Now, Israel's first king, Saul, had been thought by the people of Israel to be adequate at first because he was handsome, he was wealthy, but he proved he could not be a spiritual or a moral leader for that nation. So when they went against God's commands, particularly Saul, when Saul went against God's commands for him that were given through the prophet Samuel, despite repeated warnings, God ended up choosing the boy David, even though he was not the child of Saul. He would not have normally inherited the kingdom. Now you turn to 2 Samuel chapter 11. Now we know David is no longer a boy. He's not the boy that slayed Goliath. He's a middle-aged king and he's reigning over Israel in its first time of prosperity. Now Saul is long dead by this point. And this is his house, his family has fallen away. So for the first time in his life, King David chooses to rest and enjoy the fruits of all that God has blessed him with. He chooses one spring that he's not going to go out to battle with Israel's troops. Instead, he stays put in Jerusalem and he becomes bored in that time. So during an afternoon of boredom, David's strolling along the roof of his palatial home when he happened to look down and he sees a woman taking a bath. That woman was Bathsheba, and a lot of us know the story. Maybe we went to Sunday school as kids. And Bathsheba was the wife of one of David's generals, Uriah. And so, spying her, he took her as his own. During their affair, Bathsheba became pregnant, and David plotted the death of her husband. Once her husband Uriah died in battle, David married Bathsheba, and then he is rebuked by Nathan, the prophet of God, and warned that their first child will die. And that tragedy it took place despite the fact that David has indeed returned to God. He has repented to God, but the tragedy of the death of the child still takes place. Now, I've described these miserable events in 2 Samuel 11 and 12 very briefly because our focus this morning is on this Psalm of David that he wrote in his misery. And I'd encourage you to read it as you talk about both grief and repentance. And so I'll talk about the meaning of that in just a moment.